So this is really, it is a case study because it's about my experience of drawing and illustration. And I'm one of these people that says, no, I'm not an illustrator by any means. But in fact, you can't understand how many times you are actually drawing throughout the course of your life. And then it made me think, well, what is illustration anyway? And what do we actually think illustration is? So let me just move on to the next thing. So yes, what is drawing? What different types of drawing are there? When is drawing used? And how do you communicate your ideas? So I mean, there are many definitions of drawing now. So we are thinking very, very broadly, and it'd be interesting to know if you think these things are drawing as well, the things I'm going to show you now. It's just really some examples of what I think could be used, could be defined as drawing, or is it just communication? I'm not sure. So, okay, so different working experiences have given me the opportunity to look at drawing in different ways, to use as a design tool and as a quick note-taking method. So for fashion design, it's about developing ideas, communicating these, and depicting the cloth. In Savile Row tailoring, it's about drawing straight onto the cloth, using measurements and drawing with stitches. With period costume, it's about replicating the past through life, the colours, the construction, the embroidery, etc. And then with knitwear, it's about the stitch and the rows. How do you communicate those? How do you make the pattern for those? The colour combinations, the silhouette and the texture. For pattern cutting, it's technical graph making. It's marking out in 2D what will become 3D, size and silhouette. And then at the V&A residency or designing a collection, it's about recording research. It's about recording everything, developing ideas from that. And then in education, as an educator, how do I communicate to students in diagrams? So diagrams of what do they do next? So when I think about my sort of the things that I do in my life or have done in my career, I've been drawing all the way throughout without realizing really. And it's a design tool, but it's also a very much a communication tool. So when I first started pattern cutting, well, not when I very first started, but early days, I was working for a designer called Shelley Fox, and she gave me this information here as a way of telling me what she'd like me to make a pattern of. So up until then, I'd been working in Savile Row and for Joe Casely Hayford, and I'd been making patterns, replicating designs, drawn illustrations of designs, and then making the paper pattern for that would then go on to be made up into a toile and then into the real thing, garment. Whereas this was a totally different way of working as a pattern cutter. And it was about her theme really, and her whole aesthetic and the theme of her collection, and it was about language. So in a way, instead of her just giving me a drawing, she was communicating to me that the drawing or the garment that she had designed or would like to design is about language. So it was a very obscure way for me to work at this time, and it just threw me straight into it. And basically I started drawing and working in a totally different way as a pattern cutter than I had done before. And it was much more about using geometric shapes and working on the stand and drawing lots and lots of little shapes that could then become something to do with the alphabet or communication. The fabric was, we had the Braille language embossed into it. So that was a very interesting experience of what drawing might be. Then working in Savile Row, you work straight onto the cloth. You're drawing with tailor's chalk, but you're also you're also drawing with stitching. You think about top stitching, that is a drawing in a way. Top stitching, shaping stitching, different stitches for different reasons. Stitching that brings hems up where you can't see the stitching on the other side, like herringbone stitch, so that it's invisible stitching. All sorts of stitching. It's a drawing. It's communicating something, but it's also, I know it's a construction method, but it's also it can also be seen as embellishment. Then drawing is all around us, if you think of it that way. Because I then thought, well, this is in my studio in Nottingham. Wire, knitting needles from the machine, just thread. You can see drawing everywhere you go. It's inspiration, I suppose. Is drawing inspiration? Is drawing all around us? Drawing in decay. So this was my old house in Brighton, totally damp, as you can see. Taking the pictures off the wall and seeing where they've been, leaving a mark. Is that some sort of communication that somebody's lived there, somebody's been there? It's a certain sort of drawing. You might not think so, but I've got a feeling that that could pass as drawing. Certainly if it's like mark making, which you do a lot of. Drawing on the body, of course. So we've got makeup, and also the way someone's hair is shaved. It's depicting an image. So it's drawing. Is it illustration? Is it drawing? It's a communication. Drawing for image. So if you're looking at old magazines, the Blitz magazine, Square Peg, but ID magazine, the Face as well. So if you're trying to get an image across or aesthetic across, you're going to draw in a different way. You're going to draw in the way that actually resembles that theme or that message that you're going to get across. You're going to try and get across. So the drawing might become different. It might become spiky, or it might become sketchy. Drawing on the wall, for instance, as well. There's a different feeling to that. It's getting a drawing across as a feeling. Drawing as collage. Is that a drawing? Just putting pictures together and just putting images together. Does that make a drawing? Is that? It certainly is communicating. We use collage in our sketchbooks. Is it communicating something? Is that communicating a certain time in history to you? And in that case, is it like a drawing? We've also got communication within drawings, within books as well. And sort of, are these are more like cartoons, I suppose. Well, that's Hargreen's Political Lampoon, wood engraving, 1930, 1940. And I just thought that was really a fabulous one, that first one. The higher it's raised, the tighter the chain. So that's a wood engraving, but it's still a drawing to me. I think that's a really fabulous, it's got a fabulous meaning behind it, of the man being pushed up, and it's all about working class lifestyles, as are the other illustrations. It's about young boys in youth clubs and so on, working class kids playing. And so the drawing has been done in a much more scribbly, scrawly way, just to give an indication of lifestyle. So why is drawing important? It is the best method of communication. If you can see clear images, you don't need words. This here is my pattern cutting research into surgery cutting, and to find the connections between surgery cutting and pattern cutting for fashion. And if you looked clear enough, you could see, you probably almost, I love these types of drawings where you don't really need to even read what's underneath. You can almost see what's happening and where things are positioned. And I think that's a great inspiration if you can draw in that way. To actually communicate something without words is a really exciting thing. So how do you use drawing? I mean, also I'd say 2D to 3D model making, that's drawing. Going on to drape on the stand, that's also drawing as well. Quarter scale, full scale, part garment, close-up elements, shape making, pinning and stitching. Pinning and stitching is also seen as drawing because you're following a line, so it's indicating where you need to draw from, or where you need to stitch. I mean, sorry. So also drawing through technical practice. So this is sort of drawing through technical practice in education, drafting patterns. So in industry as well, but in education it would be like step-by-step instructions. So not always to scale, just methods, just sort of explaining what to do next. So sometimes you can draw something without writing anything down at all, and you might do a series of drawings just to show one stage after the next, and so on. Vintage patterns, really looking back to the past for communication, to get ideas from, and to read where seams meet and where maybe pleats are, and so on. These patterns give you an indication of the grain lines and the center front and so on. So it's although it's information and it's writing into some degree, it's also drawing. So the design process, is that drawing, going from 2D to 3D and then back to 2D again. Flat cutting, testing lines on the stand, or draping and drawing lines on the stand, then taking back to 2D, flat pattern again. The whole process, to in and fro in. Toile pieces, not full garment ideas, just testing a technique or a fit or a placement. And then thinking about cloth as skin, and skin as cloth. I mean, cloth as skin and skin as cloth. This is an interesting thought, really. I mean, that scar line, is that a drawing? Similarities can be found in surgery cutting, drawing straight onto the body, or drawing straight onto the stand as a fashion designer, aiming for aesthetically pleasing scar lines. And then in the middle, we've got face reconstruction patterns for soldiers after World War I. And you can see there how they've drawn onto the body and lifted that skin from the body to, oh no, first of all, they've done a pattern, haven't they? They've made a pattern on the face, some sort of a pattern on the face, drawn that onto the body, lifted that, and then they would lift that skin to use on the face. I mean, it is a drawing. A lot of these surgeons are really great drawers, actually, and good artists. And I think that there's a designer you should look out for, or not a designer, an artist called Paddy Hartley, who's also worked with, he's made masks and lots of artwork to do with World War I soldiers and this type of thing. So it's quite interesting to look at his work if you get a chance. So how do you translate your drawings? This is Timo Rissanen. The first one is Timo Rissanen's pattern for a zero-waist pajama jacket pattern. And it's drawn out in a way that you can sort of see the size of the garment, the size of the sheet of paper or fabric, but you don't know what the measurements are in between. You only know that the sheet width is 136, sheet length is 217. So then translating that into my little scruffy drawing next to it is me working it out. Well, what if that's that measurement, what could that measurement be, and so on. And working out, developing the pattern, the sizes of the pattern, and then going into paper afterwards. So it's a three-dimensional thing, going from 2D to 3D. But I think, to be honest, all three of those are drawings and all have communication in different ways. And then more of it, Timo Rissanen. That one's the jacket, and this one is the pair of trousers. And this has come out of the this first picture's come out of the Timo Rissanen and Holly McQuillan Zero Waste Pattern Cutting book. And then we've got this other little drawing on the side there, which is Julian Roberts's illustration, very much in a similar way to the way I was drawing, in a way, drawing with freedom, drawing for yourself, not drawing for anybody else to mark or to say whether it's good or not, literally drawing for your own note-taking. And if you see here, it's almost like that skirt, two of those plus a circle makes one of those, two tops plus come together plus this makes that, and so on. He's almost got little mathematical equations going on, but they're just little drawings, and I think that's a fantastic thing to do. It's almost like shorthand, secretary shorthand from the 1950s or something, but in drawing form. And then if we think about research and collecting research, collecting design images, you know, you're going to be researching, you're going to be archiving, you're going to be drawing from things that you've seen. That second image in is an original drawing from the V&A Museum. Lots and lots of little armor pieces. So I suppose, you know, there's all sorts of different types of drawings, ones that are a bit more maybe a bit more special, but mostly they're usually the ones that are just like for note taking and for quickly recording something that you don't want to forget. Drawing for information, not drawing to scale, but drawing to quickly capture measurements. These are pieces of armor with all the measurements captured in minute detail in order to make up again in 3D. Then drawing for inspiration, really. I mean, that first drawing there is smudgy, and it could be anything. If you look at that drawing, it could be a padded jacket, it could be, those could be little strips of straps, or and it could be open, or it could be embroidered on top. There's almost so many different ways you could look at a drawing, and sometimes it's nice to just draw something that is really rough and really open, so that you can then start to translate that in other mediums, such as knitting or drawing or printing or anything, you know, embroidery or pattern making, and you can start to translate in many different ways, so your design continues to grow and develop. And more drawing here, looking from photographs and drawing again, and then going into one leads to the next, and so on. So how can you record your own research into sampling and pattern cutting? So I've put some keywords here and some techniques. So you've got also, there's a really fabulous book called Fabric Manipulation, actually, and I think I've mentioned it on the last slide on here. I've written it down for you, but it's a great book, and it is like drawing. It's got lots and lots of information in there about drawing and cutting and sewing, and it's really just using fabric instead of paper to do exactly what you would do on paper, to develop three-dimensional textiles or collage, or, you know, it's gathering up all the different materials and and playing, really. Then we also, in our sketchbooks at college or at university, there's also this thing called mark making, and everybody goes through it, everybody has to do it, and it is really freeing. It really lets up it gives you another sort of freedom of possibilities, and for texture, and for also for well, certainly for knit design, it's a really fabulous way of working. But I'm sure also for print design as well, just to play with from your research into to develop from your research into mark making and collage and so on. So, and I've mentioned drawing for note taking as well. So if you wanted to, if you saw an image like this Max Tilt folk costumes, you might then start to, well, you'd start to maybe list some ideas, but you might also start to draw some ideas of how you would take that further in your design development. So in here, I've got, well, it's definitely all geometric shapes. It's all fabric manipulation. So some of it's draped, some of it's tucked, some of it's gathered, some of it's got inserts in it. And then you might start drawing to understand what you're thinking at the time. I've put this in because it's a really lovely example. Alice Hoyle, she's a graduate from Nottingham Trent University. She looked at zero waste pattern cutting, and that very first image there is of room plans, and she's used the lines, the thick lines and the thin lines, to either to cut or to fold, and to create little zero waste tops and trousers. So you think, well, those little tops and trousers are just bits of paper folded, but they are drawings as well. They are drawings. They're not only drawn on top of, but they are little drawings because they're communicating her designs. So then going on from that now to something that I'm not quite as familiar with, really, but it is in my life, and it is in, I'm sure it's in yours too. The digital side of things. So we've got Abode Illustrator and Photoshop for 2D work and technical specifications. Adobe, I mean, not Abode, Adobe. Rhino 3D software and 3D printing for prototyping. Ethos laser cutting and CNC machining for manufacture and design. So CAD computer aided design and CAM computer aided manufacture, digital software for research, drawing and image manipulation. I'm sure some of you have had some goes on some of these things already. Obviously, I would say that when you're at university, this is one of the things that you'll be doing a lot, which is the technical specifications for fashion, or even for product, or you know, anything that you're into, that you do. What else would it be? Fashion, product, textiles, and probably textiles too, because we've got digital textiles, digital knitting. So yes, this is very much coming commonplace now. The digital 3D illustration, that's another thing that's coming through now as well, so that you're starting to draw. Is this a drawing though? Is this a drawing? Because it's a photograph, but it's a drawing. And if a collage can be a drawing, can this be a drawing? It says it's an illustration. Then 3D printing is another thing, which is just building up and actually being a three-dimensional actual object or a piece. And is that a drawing? Laser cutting. Now that's certainly, to me, is like a drawing, but it's obviously technological drawing. Cutting out, laser cutting, but it's certainly like using a pencil or a pen, I suppose, in a way that you're communicating. Oh my goodness, I forgot that was a film. There you go. So I don't know if any of you have used laser cutting before. I haven't, but I'm very familiar with it. So digital drawing and craftsmanship, we could actually discuss this afterwards about what do we like the best, or where do we think they both have a good do they go together very much, you know? So do they still work together well, or what do you think the future holds? So drawing is important throughout the creative process. Drawing can be used to manufacture a final product. Drawing can be applied to final products through digital craftsmanship. Traditional drawing skills are important alongside learning new technologies. Depending on your project approach, you will need to use drawing in different ways and to draw in different ways. And it all starts with hand drawing, sketching, and exploring your research. So this was the thing I got. It looks really old-fashioned, this, for the further reading. Looks like the little, but I've put that on, especially really. Well, the Manipulating Fabric, The Art of Manipulating Fabric, is a great book, and that for anybody that's in textiles. But the other little one as well, which is an old one, the Reader's Digest. I mean, obviously there's plenty of great books out there now, but this little one has tons and tons of little drawings in it, and quite often you don't have to read the instructions. You just can look at the pictures and see what it's trying to tell you. So your samples should relate to your drawing. They should look like an element of your drawing, either through texture, shape, form, construction, or detail. So the questions then is, what is drawing? Maybe you don't agree with me about some of these things. Are they drawing or are they not? Is it just communication? Or if they're not drawing, what are they then? What different types of drawing are there? When is drawing used? But mostly it'd be nice to hear from you. How do you communicate your ideas?